looking at all the judgment and all the past that we lug around, because I recognize that in myself. I'll look in the mirror and I'll conflate my own thoughts about myself with other words spoken from people I've met along the way, or strangers, whatever it might be. And I am, pulling that along in a massive sledge behind me, like every morning. How do we, because everyone's got that. And I'm thinking people at home are going to be like, yeah, I have that. But how are we moving past that? How are we not bringing our whole past and our lump of regret with us each morning? How do we move on? Because, I know obviously sometimes with tricky situations in life, you might have had good intent, but others have still judged you, or you've ended up in a tricky spot. But there will still be times in our past where we acted without good intent. And we know that we did something out of jealousy or cruelty or whatever it might be, of just feeling angry about our own lives. So how do we let that go when we know that good intent wasn't anywhere near that situation? How the hell are we stepping over that massive pile of crap?
Well, I think that, look, I think especially your listeners know that you act out in pain because you didn't know any other way to cope. And so when you can bring empathy and understanding to what happened to you, you can start to understand the behavior. And it's only when you understand the behavior from the past that you can spot it and you can catch it and you can change it, because patterns of behavior repeat unless you break them and replace them. And so one of the reasons why this high five habit, and it's just one of a bazillion habits in this book that we can talk about to address this question. One of the reasons why high-fiving your reflection in the mirror works is because you don't have to think anything. This is the genius of it. So, when it started to work for me, and then I, of course, put a photo on social media on my story, and within an hour, 100 people, men, women, children around the world were high-fiving and tagging themselves. I thought, okay, whoa. First of all, I'm not the only one who's feeling like the world on my shoulders. Okay, that's reassuring. And secondly, maybe this thing isn't that cheesy after all. And so I've spent the last year researching this. And so first, let me explain in addressing your question about how do you get your mind to stop going down the road of beating the shit out of yourself for all the stuff that you did when you were just trying to survive. Because that's what you were trying to do. You were just trying to survive. And I have been startled, Fern. I was molested when I was in the 4th grade. And it was a one-time incident. I woke up in the middle of the night at a big family thing with lots of different families, and all the kids were in one room, and there was an older kid on top of me. And it is that moment that my anxiety began. I literally had a fight or flight response, which is all that anxiety is. Anxiety in your body is just an alarm bell going off when your nervous system goes into a sympathetic or an on edge alarm state. And I possummed, I disassociated, I literally left my body. And that next morning I woke up knowing that something was wrong, knowing that something bad had happened. And in that moment, my nervous system was still on alarm. And when I walked downstairs that morning, my mom was cooking breakfast. The kids were all over the kitchen, lots of other moms around. And my mom turned to me and said, "How'd you sleep, honey?" And I froze. And I froze because the kid was sitting at the kitchen table. Now, I knew if I said something, my mother, she's a farm gal. She grew up on a cattle farm. She would literally take that spatula and hit him into next week. Like, there was no concern about my mom. I was concerned about what this person would do. And so my nervous system in that moment got hardwired to be on edge, to be worried about how people react. And I have lived in that state for literally ever since 45 years. And so one of the things that happens, we're going to talk about our nervous system, because there's also a high five you can do to your heart that is profound for any kind of anxiety or trauma that you may be feeling. And we're going to explain that in a minute. But first, I want to explain what some of the world's leading neuroscientists have said about why the high five habit works. When you go to raise your hand in the mirror, and this is how you're going to do it. You can do it right after you listen to this. You can do it tomorrow morning. What I want you to do to make it a habit, first of all, is I want you to do it right after you brush your teeth. Hopefully, we're all brushing our teeth every day. It's a really good habit to have. When you put your toothbrush down, like right on the counter, now we're going to practice the high five. You're going to take a minute and you're just going to look at yourself. And I want you to, in that moment, I want you to set an intention. And the reason why I want you to set an intention as you're with yourself is because there is new research out of Harvard that shows that if you take just a minute in the morning and you think about how you're going to show up today and who you're going to be, and more importantly, what actually matters to you, what game do you want to play that you want to make progress on, not complete, not win at, just what's one thing you want to inch forward? And how do you need to show up today to really engage in that game that matters to you? It could be something personal, could be something at work. It doesn't matter, with your kids. And then once you have that in your mind, you're going to raise your hand and you're going to high five yourself. And yes, it will feel weird. Yes, it will feel awkward, but I'm going to tell you what's not going to happen. It is neurologically and scientifically impossible to raise your hand and high five your reflection and think, gosh, you suck. Boy, you're ugly. Your chin's really pointy. Your jowls, Mel, are starting to look like saddlebags on a pack mule. Like, you can't think those things. You just can't. And here's why. You have spent your lifetime high-fiving other people or raising your hands in celebration with other people. You've done it so many times that the gesture of high-fiving, even by just seeing other people do it in sports matches, it's already encoded. Like, Fern, when somebody high-fives you, what are they saying to you?
Well, I think they're celebrating you on a subconscious level and saying, I see you, hey. And I think what I'm realizing as you're talking is, and this is so obvious to say, but it's just hit me, is that we're not to underestimate habits. Because I think some of the time we're sat there waiting for, quite frankly, an epiphany. There's going to be this moment where I really like myself, or if I get the job, the partner, the thing, then I'm going to like myself. We've got to do the habit bit first to get anywhere near that. And we are all relying on some miraculous, maybe it's because we've been sort of indoctrinated over the years with like the big reality TV shows where, you know, all of a sudden you're celebrated and you look amazing and you're on TV and everyone's cheering at you. And I'm going to have that moment. It's going to happen down the line. This is a habit. This is, like you say, cleaning your bloody teeth. This is a habit we have to do every day. And it's, as much as sort of changing your habit can be tiresome, once you're in a habit, you don't even know you're doing it. I don't think I've got to brush my teeth. You're just doing it. So we can't underestimate habit here.
Yes. And by the way, you already have a habit that we're trying to break, which is you have a habit of ignoring or criticizing yourself.
Yeah.
Just like you're cleaning your teeth, we got to clean your mind of all that bullshit you've been saying for a long time.
But that's empowering, because often we believe it. We think, well, I am just a piece of shit. But it's empowering to know, no, that is a habit that I go to, that I think I'm a piece of shit when X, Y, Z happens. It's not true. That also is a habit. Empowering, both things.
Yes.
Empowering.
Yes. Exactly. And you have friends that have done piece of shit things in their lives.
Yeah.
And you can understand that they did that. They drank, they were addicted, they cheated on people. They, like, whatever they did, they were a bloody asshole. But you can now see that they're trying. You can now see that they're changing and they're working hard, and you can love them through it. I'm here to tell you, you have to make a habit of doing this for yourself every day. And you just said this thing about, I'll be happy when I get that job or I lose that weight. The problem with attaching your happiness and your validation and your support to achieving something is, once you achieve it, you are stuck with the old habit of still hating yourself. And you're now going to need to find something else to achieve in order to prove that you're worthy of it again. You see, I've been an overachiever my whole life because I've equated achieving with being worth something. And when you are an overachiever and you think it's only when you're achieving something that you are worth loving or celebrating, you will be a jealous motherfucker, because everybody else that's succeeding is now competing with you for the love and for the worth that you want. And when you start to actually give yourself the love and the self-validation that you need, even when you're failing, especially when moments are hard, when you're, telling yourself, okay, Rex was an asshole to me last night and I feel like a terrible mother. And you stand there, Fern, and you're like, you know what? Today I'm just going to show up and I'm going to be compassionate and patient, both with him and with myself. And you raise your hand and you high five yourself. What you're doing in that moment is you're shutting down the criticism. It's an act of defiance to that beatdown that you've been giving yourself. And because this is the coolest part, everybody, because you've been high-fiving everybody else and watching everybody else do it, all the messaging, I believe you, I love you, we got this. You know, you give a teammate a high five or a kid a high five when their attitude is sinking to basically say, I get it, it's hard, you blew it. But guess what? Pick back up. We're going in. Come on, we got this. I got your back. You're not alone here. So it communicates all of that. It's already in your subconscious.
We have a new tradition on the Diary of a CEO, which is in the diary, the famous Diary of a CEO, the previous guest always writes a question for the next guest that's coming. Ooh. And they don't know who they are.
Okay.
And these guests, they're so diverse. It's always so fascinating. And they never know who they're writing it for, which is also interesting. The previous guest wrote, what is the one regret you have, if you have any at all?
It's a tricky question because I'm one of these people that doesn't want to go back and change anything.
I think everybody is, according to the science. We had Mo Gaudat sit here from Google. He talked about the eraser test, and he said even people that have gone through profound trauma, when asked the question if they would erase the trauma, 99+% said no, because of the domino effect. You don't know, you know. It's an interesting one.
Yeah. You know, like any behavior that hurt somebody else, you know, anything that I did, whether it was lied or cheating or, you know, just being an asshole when I was just trying to survive that unintentionally hurt somebody else. I wish that that wasn't part of my story. But you know, I wouldn't understand at a profound level that really well-meaning good people do really shitty things when they feel shitty about themselves. And, you know, if I hadn't done shitty things when I felt shitty about myself, I wouldn't fully believe that.
And you might do that again, I guess, had you not done it once.
Yeah. Yeah. Or twice or 3 times or 4 times. Like first you got to wake up, you know. And then there's all the things that I did that I don't realize hurt somebody else. But, you know, I know in my heart that I was still a good person. I was just in a really bad place, which is, you know, why you do bad things. Your relationship with yourself is the foundation for everything in life. And if you believe you're a bad person, you will tend to do bad things. And the opposite is also true. If you believe that you are a good person who is worthy of good things, you tend to do good things.
Unbelievably true. My last question for you is one that I tend to always ask people I meet that I find to be incredibly wise and very good at helping others. I mean, you help hundreds of millions of people combined, which is, do you still struggle with all of the shit you talk about?
Oh my God.
Like,
yes. That's why I'm so fucking relatable. I do not have this stuff figured out. I am shoulder to shoulder with everybody. Whether it's issues going on with one of my kids, issues going on with one of me, you know, look, you know, just the other night, this is what happened. I self-published the audiobook.
Okay.
And which is amazing because I'm a smart motherfucker. I own my rights, and you should.
To this book as well.
No, this one I did a joint venture on the publishing, but I own all of the audio.
Amazing.
And because the 5-second rule is self-published, and it's the #1 selling self-published audiobook in the history of audiobooks.
The book is self-published as well. Oh, smart.
And which is why I need to get into NFTs because I don't like it when somebody else has control. I, as an artist, want to own what I do. As a businesswoman, nothing pisses me off more than getting into a dumb deal. And then I resent the people that I'm in the deal with because I didn't negotiate properly. And if you believe in what you're doing, you better own your work. You better understand the long tail payoff of your work, because nobody will market your work better than you, and you will be profoundly pissed off when somebody else is making their money 100 years from now. And for every author that's listening, make sure you look at Amazon, because the relatives of what's-his-face, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective whatever, they're the ones collecting checks on that because that book is still hitting. So you want to be like Mariah Carey. She laughs all the way to the bank whenever Christmas rolls around because of that song. And so, I self-publish the audiobook. I have a tremendous partnership with Audible, where we create a lot of original content for them behind their paywall. And I self-published this book, and we destroyed it in sales the month of October. The number one selling audiobook, period, hands down, of any book that was published, period. AP reported it. Everybody reported it. And then the New York Times comes out in November, and they rank the top 10 audiobooks of the month of October, and they deliberately left me off. And when that happened, I punched the wall. I drank a gin martini. I lit up a joint. I called a couple friends and bitched. And I immediately got triggered because I went right back to the experience of being a ninth grader on the tennis team and having the seniors throw a party, and I was the only ninth grader who wasn't involved. And so it triggered a very old pattern that I thought I had fucking gotten rid of, which is I'm an outsider. Nobody likes me. I'm always having to sneak in. Why am I never invited? Why am I not part of the cool kids? Why am I not like it's that old stupid ass story that got triggered. And so of course this shit happens. It happens all the time. And I just happen to talk about it because I don't like feeling these things. And I find that just trying to shove it down makes the next time it happens get even bigger. And so I share this stuff because I think holding it in is what's creating a lot of anxiety and regret and upset and stuckness for people. We are all so the same. And the more that, I kind of share the ups and downs, I think the more people listen to the things that are working and try them out and tweak them for their own life. And look, if I can save anybody the heartache and the headaches I caused myself, that's a life well lived. If I can laugh at myself along the way, if I can punch a wall and drink a gin martini and then share with you like, okay, this, and then get out. Because how I got out of that, because I could have been in that cycle, the old Mel would have been there for a month. Everybody's out to get me. I never get recognized. Why even bother? It doesn't matter. And it allows me to share in real time that I feel all the shit, but I don't like to stay there. And this is not toxic positivity. It is important when you're disappointed to allow yourself to feel disappointed. It is important when you lose something to give yourself the grace to grieve for as long as you need to. It is important to have a good cry, to have a good scream, it's important to feel the highs and the lows. You're meant to feel it all. But you can shorten the length of time you stay down. And what always helps me, it's something that, I developed when the the 5-second rule launch was coming off the rails, is I just kept saying what I've said a couple times during this. I say to myself, I refuse to believe that if I'm a good person and that if I'm working hard, I refuse to believe that this doesn't work out. I refuse to believe that I'm not going to be okay. Like, I know that this moment's going to pass, and I know that I will look back on this moment 5 years from now, and I'll see exactly what I was meant to learn. And what I was meant to learn, I already know, is that I have got to once and for all stop looking for validation in old institutions. If I truly want to be an artist on my own terms, don't even pay attention to that shit, because it doesn't matter in the world that we're living in now. It doesn't matter if you really want to make impact, because the person that's struggling is the person that you want to reach, not the person that's deciding who gets on some stupid list that's printed in a paper. And redirecting your focus to what actually matters. And the fact that you believe in your heart, that you got the mindset, you got the work ethic, you got the ability to figure this shit out and to keep going. And that eventually, if you do, what's meant for you is going to find you. You will be rewarded for all this in the way that you're meant to be rewarded. That's amazing. It's an amazing feeling because you can pick yourself up no matter what happens.
Well, thank God you do share it because, you know, you're a very special human being, and there's very few in the world that have the genius of the skill stack, the way it's kind of how I see it, that you have, where they're able to go through things in life, analyze them, understand them from a psychological, a scientific perspective, from a sort of intrinsic internal perspective, and then be a masterful orator in sharing that in a relatable, honest way that helps others to change their lives and find the peace they're looking for, find the outcomes they're searching for. There's very few that can do that with such genius. So
that's a beautiful compliment, and thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it, and I can hear it. For the first time in my life, I can hear it.
You said something earlier, and I wanted to ask you, that all kind of wraps together about you traveling all the time, your kids not, funny, like your kids at school, they're not calling you back. Your parents, when the pool table, people can read the book to get the story. But I wanted to really ask you about this guilt thing, because it could be guilt for yourself or guilt for other people, right? Like, when you're traveling a lot for work, you're not around for your kids, and how people can deal with that, or guilty when you eat a whole cake when you on yourself, be hard on yourself and you feel guilty. How overall, how do people really kind of combat the feeling of guilt?
Great question. So first, let's understand that there are two forms of guilt.
Okay.
There's productive and destructive.
Mm-hmm.
So productive guilt is the kind of guilt that makes you wake up and change your behavior. So let me give you an example. So let's say that you are somebody that's going through a really rough time, and your way of coping emotionally is to eat your feelings. If you start to feel guilty about how much binging you're doing, it's productive if you reach out for help, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's destructive if you ruminate, bury yourself in shame, make yourself wrong, and continue to binge. Because all that destructive guilt is doing is it is making you feel worse about yourself, which deepens your emotions, which makes you feel less power, even more powerless, which causes you to binge even more.
Mm-hmm.
If it's productive, it causes you to take an action in a different direction. Productive guilt for those of us that work like crazy.
And travel a lot.
If you feel guilty all the time about your traveling and your work schedule, stop and pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling it and using it to just make yourself wrong? Or is the guilt trying to get you to pay attention to something? When I first became wildly successful, I felt guilty all the time. And when I finally stopped and imagined and kind of unpacked it, I felt guilty that I was missing out on school events, guilty that I wasn't home to tuck them in, guilty that I was constantly working, guilty that I wasn't volunteering at the school, guilty that I wasn't the one driving the carpool, guilty that just on and on and on and on. And so I stopped it and I was like, okay, whoa, what exactly do I feel guilty about? Because there's a lot of FOMO that drives guilt. Mm-hmm. And the feeling like you should do that, should be there, should be doing these things you see other people. Or
I think you feel guilty that it seems that you prioritize, not you, I'm talking in general, your career over your family. Like, oh, you're missing, I'm not driving carpool, exactly the same thing. And that could be, again, men and women, right? You can't make it to this thing. You're not driving carpool, you're not around, or whatever it is.
Well, I can unpack this because here's the thing.
Okay.
Where I think you were going is comparison.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, this mom is doing this. This dad's going to is leaving a meeting early to be at the soccer game.
I think I'm going to have a hot flash. Hold on.
Can
you feel me like getting I feel it's coming like a volcano.
Are you okay?
Well, this is menopause.
Okay.
We'll just keep talking. I'm fine.
Okay. Are you sure? Want some cold water?
I can't do anything about it. It's like a hormone thing.
Should I get you some ice?
No, I'm good. Like, do you see how flush I'm getting? Or is it only internal?
You were really, really red for about 10 seconds, but now you're red again.
Yeah, see, I feel like everybody on camera, this is what a hot flash
Well, how old are you?
52.
You look great, though.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, yeah, sorry. I didn't know it was a hot flash. You don't seem like you're having a hot flash.
It's all internal. This is what it looks like. Now, see, if I were resisting it.
Right.
my nervous system would go on edge. My thoughts would go, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. You're having a hot flash on camera. You're about to be bright red, which would only then accelerate the hot flash and the nervous system stuff. And it would make it all worse.
But you kind of just like, you put it out there. So you already.
And now it's gone.
So where was I with you with the guilty? Oh, I was going to say something.
Oh, so let me say, so it's about comparison.
Yes.
So that guilt is driven by comparison. You think you should be this way. The way to figure out productive guilt is ground down in your values.
Yeah, but you know what it is? You said it really well in the book about stop saying I'm sorry and start saying thank you.
Right. But before you can do that, you have to ask yourself, what do I want? Because what I realized is I actually don't want to miss out on this much.
Right.
But the speaking business works like 12 months out.
Right. That's right.
And they book 12 months out. So once you're in the schedule, you're in the schedule. And so I felt guilty all the time. And so I said, well, wait a minute, I don't want to be traveling this much. So I need to change. So I put certain things in place. Like I don't ever travel on the weekends unless it's like something super whatever. I typically don't travel on Mondays and Fridays. I don't travel to a place I can't get to on a direct flight. I pick and choose. I take the entire summer months off to be present.
You do that?
Yes. Now, if an incredible thing comes up and it works, then I'll do it. But grounding down in your values and what you really want is how you get to the bottom of what works for you. And then you make the changes. And then the other piece of advice that'll change your life is flip guilt into gratitude. So this is another way to go from a really low mental state, right, which is feeling guilty, into a high five attitude, a higher mental state. Flip it from feeling guilty into gratitude. And so what you do is instead of saying, I'm sorry I'm late, I'm sorry this, I'm sorry this, I'm sorry I'm a pain in the ass, I'm sorry I'm gluten-free, I'm sorry kids I won't be there, say thank you. Thank you for supporting me. You know I want to be there. And you also know that this speech that I have is really important. And so I so appreciate you supporting me in pursuing my dreams. And you want to know what? You got my word that I will support you in pursuing yours. And then your kids feel acknowledged and they feel like they're participating in what you're doing. When you say I'm sorry and you're constantly talking about how guilty you feel, you make it all about you and it makes everybody feel annoyed and it makes everything worse. When you flip it into gratitude and you have this high five attitude about what you're up to and what support you need, you actually put the focus on everybody else and their support of you. And then you also are proving to yourself that you are worthy of that support. Again, it's a way you high five it.
See that? How do you come up with all of this stuff? This is what I said to you earlier.
I struggle. I wake up in a Marriott courtyard across the country and I am missing a soccer game and I feel like shit. And I cry and I say, I got to change and I don't know how to change this and we need the money and, I can't be everywhere. And why do I always feel so bad? And I don't want to feel like this. And then I have to be like, okay, wallow in that crap and then stop and figure out how to change. If you don't want this, figure out what you want. You don't have to pick one or the other. You can have and. You can be an incredible mother and a kick-ass businesswoman. You can be an incredible partner and have an amazing, just lovely partnership with the soulmate of your life. And you can also pursue your own dreams. It doesn't have to be an either or proposition. And you don't have to suffer. If you have trauma, fucking heal it. Address it head on and heal it. You're not responsible for the stuff that happened to you, but you're responsible for what happens next, which includes your healing, which includes your goals, which includes your happiness, which includes how you spend your time, all of it. And I'm going to tell you, all those changes are going to be a hell of a lot easier if you are empowering, supporting, and celebrating yourself every step of the way.
I also do think that there's some meat to the fact that there's stuff that leads up to going, I can't take it anymore. I'm making a change. You have an epiphany, something hits hard enough, you're over it, like you just hit a breaking point, and something does change in a moment. It always changes in a moment, and it's up to you to get to that moment. So what can we do to get to that moment with routines, practices, disciplines? How do we get there? Because there's got to be, there's always something that leads up to it.
Well, one thing that I've learned in life is that your breakdowns are just going to keep getting bigger. until you wake the fuck up and get the lesson that the universe is sending. I mean, period. It took me a long time to see that I had a very painful pattern of being drawn to really big personality people who were really fun and edgy and just like, wow, like a shiny object. And then, you know, when you're having fun with this kind of person and you're laughing all the time and they're really edgy and you start to realize, oh my God, they're actually kind of mean to people, or they lie, or they do this. Now all of a sudden I get scared because I don't know how to back away. And time, like I can go all the way back to friends in elementary school, to a babysitter that I once hired, to business associates back in the day, to like just there they are. And it wasn't until I had a massive issue happened with one of them that was super painful that made me go, holy shit, this is a pattern. This person has been showing up in your life since you were 9 years old, and you have not learned it. And now you have a very expensive and a very messy and a very awful situation to clean up with somebody that you couldn't draw boundaries with, period, because you were so worried about upsetting anybody or disappointing, like you're people pleasing. And so one thing to understand is your life is the greatest school you're ever going to attend, and it's always sending you messages.
Preach.
And I hope you're not as stubborn as I am, because it took me 41 years to see the lesson about toxic behavior that I was attracted to and toxic behavior that I engaged in my own people pleasing and inability to draw a line and like distance myself or end relationships that really didn't work. And I know they don't work because I get that feeling in my stomach, and then I see myself twisting myself in knots so as to not upset somebody who's basically crazy. And I'm now like turning all around to not upset the person that is, you know, I'm afraid of their reaction because they're not regulated in terms of their emotions. And so it took me a long time. And so I want you to understand, if you're listening to this, that if you're in a frustrating situation, I want you to ask yourself, number one, when in my life have I felt like this before? And who has made me feel like this? What situations have made me feel like this? And start listing them. And when you see one, you'll see another, and then another, and then another. And then there's that boss, and then there's a situation. And then you'll ask yourself, what is it that I'm doing that is having me show up in this situation again? And so I identified kind of the personality pattern that I was drawn to: fun, unpredictable, like life of the party, like kind of like just, woo, this feels fun and this feels on edge because I can't predict what's going to happen because this person's so entertaining, only to realize, holy shit, the same thing that drew me in is what's scaring me now and turning me into a massive people pleaser that makes me go crazy. And so if you can identify that, then you ask yourself, what is the lesson that life is trying to teach me? This person is being sent into my life to teach me a lesson. And for me, the lesson, again, back to your original question, why can't we listen to our instincts? How many of us have started dating or sleeping with somebody that we knew we shouldn't have been dating or sleeping with? And then we keep going back, even though we knew that this is not a person that we should be with. And we like turn into somebody else, reckoning with and this person is being sent into your life for a reason, because you have a pattern that you need to break. And so when you can identify those three things, kind of when in my life have I felt this way before? What are the circumstances or people I've been around? What am I doing that I can see contributes to me getting into these situations? And what is this trying to teach me?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And when you can look at it that way, that's how you unpack awful situations or confronting situations, and you look for the lesson in them. And if you don't figure out the freaking lessons you're meant to learn in this lifetime, you will just keep
coming
getting
back.
them. That's it. That is it. And so, that's one thing that I have learned recently. And then the other thing that I have learned, and, it's what I wrote about in the High Five Habit, is this notion that, there's only one person that you spend your whole life with, and it's yourself. And I had this epiphany in April of 2020 when I walked into the bathroom one morning. And, there's a lot of shit going on in my life. And it doesn't even matter what the details were, because I think everybody's had that experience where you're in a season of your life that's just overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't feel capable or like you have one shred of energy left to face this shit.
Mm.
And I remember standing there in the bathroom, and I had this epiphany one morning where I realized, oh my God, there are always two human beings in the bathroom every morning. There's you, and there's a human being in the mirror. That's not your reflection. If you allow yourself to really look past the body in the mirror and through the eyes, you will see a human. You'll see your soul. And that woman that's staring back at you in the mirror, she is trying. She is so beaten down by you. She is so sick of your criticism. She needs you to wake up and start supporting her and to start being kinder to her. She's doing her best. And kind of this epiphany that I was relentless in my criticism of myself, even just 18 months ago, even having turned my life around, built this business, got our family out of the $1 million in debt, got the liens off the house, which, they were there 6 years ago, the liens from the $1 million in debt that my husband and I were in because of the restaurant business. Wow. And despite the fact that I've impacted millions of people's lives, despite the fact that I have 3 kids that are okay, they're healthy, they, are facing their stuff, they're doing their thing, they're going to school, despite the fact that I've been, married for 25 years and we still work on it despite the fact that I got a roof over, I look in the mirror and I see a woman that I hated, that wasn't enough, that was doing everything wrong. I was relentlessly focused on what wasn't working instead of all of the things that were going right. And when I had this epiphany that, oh my God, there's this poor lady in the mirror every morning who just wants me to see her and wants me to start being kinder to her and needs my support, my whole life switched. I had life inverted in so many ways because, I was it sounds like you, I was brought up, I wasn't in an abusive household at all. I was in your normal kind of happy household, whatever. My parents have their own shit from their childhoods, and everybody does. And so, I though kind of had that sense of, okay, tough love, man, push yourself. Yeah. You got to muscle through it. And I think between the constant criticizing that you do of yourself to try to fit in, and the fact that then gets reinforced by experiences in your life, I just adopted a habit that everybody has: rejecting myself, not accepting myself, constantly badgering myself for the things that weren't going right instead of the million things that are.
Yeah.
And when I reversed this and started to add in habits around empowering myself, cheering for myself, forgiving myself, giving myself some grace, being a little kinder to myself, focusing on what's working instead of harping on what's not. It is bananas how much my experience of life changed.
Good job, by the way.
Thank you.
It's hard to get to that point where we actually acknowledge our inner monologue as being important and even notice it instead of being on the wheel of the same shit we say to ourselves in our head every day when we are in the workplace or with our partner or looking in the mirror, and we say the same shit every day, right? I do. And we're harder on ourselves. It's like, I love, there's, I think maybe it was Untethered Soul, but talking about the way that you talk to yourself, like you would never be friends with your inner monologue. Never. Like who would ever be friends with the stuff that we say to ourselves in our head? So what I hear a lot of is I hear accountability in this practice of saying, I'm going to treat myself, my inner child. Like to me, it was, when I hear that, I don't know what you call it, but if it were me looking in the mirror saying that, that's my inner child going, I fucking love you. Like you're beautiful. You're amazing. Why are you so hard on me? Like yourself. Why?
Because you were trained to be hard on yourself. That's the answer. Like
Yeah.
I literally, the thing that's so profound about this for me is that when you realize this is just a pattern of thinking that your mom has with herself, your dad has with himself, every human being is trained to beat themselves up.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make a decision to stop doing it. And it is a conscious decision that you have to intentionally make and then manage all day long. And what's amazing though about your brain is because your brain is designed to learn patterns, the switch is very quick. It's easier, in my opinion, to change the default patterns in your brain than to kind of smooth out the trauma that is remembered in your nervous system.
Oh, sure. Seeing it for the first time takes forever. Changing it is the quick part. That's why when people learn the shit, I'm like, you're actually a lot further than you think.
Yeah, totally. And so the cool thing is that when you get to work on your thinking patterns, it can happen super fast. In fact, that's why I'm so excited about the idea and the research behind adding a high five in the mirror every morning to your morning routine. And the reason why it is such a powerful habit when it comes to your inner monologue is because you're unlocking neuroassociation and programming that is already in your brain, in your nervous system, in your chemistry, and you're now going to aim it back at yourself. And you're going to aim it back at yourself as a way to delete the critic in your head and to replace it with what you need, which is an encouraging voice. And by simply physically raising your hand, don't even say anything, just physically raise your hand and high five the woman you see in the mirror every morning after you brush your teeth. What happens is all the positive programming that's triggered by the physical hand gesture of high fiving, it literally gets triggered right here in your subconscious. So the funny thing is that you can be standing there, you're using your prefrontal cortex, you're like, okay, I'm going to do this stupid high five thing. As you go to raise your hand, you can think, Danica and Mel are the dumbest things. I cannot believe I'm doing this shit. And then as you get close to the mirror, something weird happens. Your mind goes silent because your brain is triggered by the high five gesture and pulls programming from your subconscious. This is positive programming in your subconscious. Yeah. You've never high fived somebody and thought, I hate you. I hope you lose. Today's a terrible day. Right. You've only high five people when you're like, I see you. I love you. Keep going. You got this. We can win. I believe in you. It's celebratory. You. Yeah. I respect you. So when you do it to yourself, the subconscious programming overrides the critic. Mm-hmm. It's insane. You will likely laugh the first time you do it because your brain then gives you a drip of dopamine. The other thing that you will feel is you'll feel a slight little kind of like, oh, I got, okay, this weird. But that sort of little energy boost comes because your nervous system is encoded with celebratory energy. When your team scores, you throw your hands in the air. When you're yell surprise at a birthday party, hands in the air. When you cross a finish line, hands in the air. When you wave hello, hands in the air. When you high five somebody, hands in the air. And so when you high five yourself, positive subconscious programming, drip of dopamine boosts your mood, and the celebratory energy in your nervous system gives you a little jolt. And that's not all. Your brain is watching. And your brain sees you treating yourself like a person who cares about you. That leverages behavioral activation therapy because you are now acting like somebody who cares about themselves. And we've done this thing called the High Five Challenge, where I think it's been live for about 48 days. We've had 145,000 people take it. It's a 5-day online experience where I coach you every day in a video. There's 145,000 people in it from 91 countries. We have the data because it's hosted on an app. It's 100% free, and people are joining it every single day. And we have measured the results. Not a single person that's taken it has said this hasn't worked. Not a single one.
Unreal.
We are getting people talking about how it's spreading through AA meetings because there's so much shame and there's such a sense of failure when there's things in your life that you regret. And so, one of the reasons why it's so powerful as a tool for forgiveness is so many people, 50% of men and women, don't or can't look at themselves in the mirror because they don't like the person that they are, or they are disgusted with where they are in life. 91% of people don't like how they look. And so when they look in the mirror, they pick apart or fixate on what they don't like. These are habits of self-rejection.
Of course. It's like giving yourself the middle finger every time. It's like the high five is the opposite of what we normally do, which is basically look in the mirror and go like this, which is kind of
1,000% right.
Like, oh, your hair is not that, and you're kind of a little fat here, and you're kind of looking a little old there, and with gray hair, or, just you're a failure. You don't do anything. You don't deserve to get ready and even try today. No one's going to care. You don't care. It's a giant middle finger to yourself most days.
Every day.
The opposite of it. The high five is the opposite of it. Are there big aha moments for you that you can think of where it was like, man, that was it. That's where I was supposed to be doing the exact thing I wanted from somebody. Because I think to myself, even with the high five, it's like a high five yourself. It's like you could also high five other people too. You know what I mean? When
you're already doing that,
the way you treat yourself is the way you treat other people.
You treat everybody else way better than you treat yourself. So the issue is not high fiving everybody else. The issue is being able to look yourself in the mirror and see a human being that's worthy of it. And if you struggle with shame or regret, or your criticism is relentless, high-fiving yourself is going to feel weird because when you look in the mirror, you see somebody who doesn't deserve that. You see somebody who's made mistakes. You see the failure. You see the things you regret. And one of the reasons why high-fiving myself in the mirror and adding it as a habit that I start every single day with, I send myself into the game of life with that high five. One of the reasons why it has been so transformative is because it is a tool that teaches me how to heal all the things that I need to heal. It is a tool that teaches me how to like myself as I am, even if I didn't go to the gym. Even if I drank a bottle of wine last night and I'm hungover and I said I wouldn't, even if I snapped at my kids, even if I didn't get through the to-do list, even if I still haven't reached my goals, I still look in the mirror and I see a person I like. I see a person I'm encouraging. I see a person who deserves that kind of support. And then I use the tool of the high five habit to give myself that support. And that has changed everything, because when you like yourself, you don't need to seek it from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like other people liking you is a bonus. If other people don't like you, it might sting a little bit, but it doesn't change the fact that you like yourself.
Yeah.
And the reason why you can be sure that you like yourself is because your brain sees you treating yourself every morning with that high five in the mirror, like a person who likes themselves treats themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with respect. The reason why people have tremendous difficulty with boundaries is because they don't respect themselves. They disrespect themselves all day long. So how on earth are they going to find the strength to have boundaries?
Exactly.
It begins with how you treat yourself in the mirror every morning, and then it builds out from there. If you treat yourself with respect, you will not allow somebody else to disrespect you. But we allow other people to disrespect us because we treat ourselves with disrespect.
Yeah.
You build it from the inside out. And so this has been the single greatest lesson of my life. Seriously, that being kind to yourself, being accepting and supportive of yourself is the superpower, is the source of motivation, is the source of confidence. And what I love about it is it's a tool. It costs nothing.
Yeah.
It works for everybody. There's tremendous science.
Yeah.
And it's free. So let me unpack the resistance.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So when you first stand, I tell people you have to do this for 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
You have to try it for 5 days because 99% of people who try this will stand in front of the mirror and you are going to feel this major resistance to doing it. And I'm going to tell you why, because the resistance is really sad. And this resistance to high-fiving yourself is the exact same resistance that stands between you and absolutely everything that you want in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So when you stand before yourself in the mirror, what you bring with you is all of the judgment and regrets and shame and trauma and abuse and the stories that you have about who you are and what's happened to you. And most of us do not see a person who is worthy of celebration. The resistance comes from a deep-seated belief that because of what's happened to you, you do not deserve to be celebrated because of the mistakes that you've made, because of the regrets that you have. You do not deserve it. And I'm here to tell you, I'm on a mission to make every man, woman, child, everybody on the planet to understand that if you can wake up and drag your ass into that bathroom and look yourself in the eye and you are still breathing and you're still trying to do a little better today, you not only deserve to be seen, supported, and celebrated, you need it. Withholding that from yourself is exactly why you're not feeling motivated and encouraged. You're waiting for your boss or your lover or your friends or your parents to tell you you deserve it. I'm here to tell you, you have to learn how to give it to yourself every single fucking day, like your life depends upon it, because it does. And if you hear passion and conviction in my voice, it is because despite my success, despite the amount of stuff that I've muscled my way through, I have spent the majority of my life hating the person I saw in the mirror. And I think truthfully, most of us do. Mm-hmm. And that's not the only reason why you resist it. The other reason why you resist it is because we have all bought into this lie that unless you do something worthy of celebration, you don't deserve it yet. So for example, if that number on the scale isn't the right number, you don't deserve a high five because you haven't hit that goal yet. Unless you're the prettiest one in the room, or you have the bank account, or you've gotten pregnant, or you're married now, or you're in love, or you're this, or you're that. You are standing there in judgment because you don't see a human being that needs those things. You see somebody that hasn't measured up yet. So you're going to withhold that stuff. Now, I want you to think about something. If you've ever watched a marathon race or you've ever run one, something interesting happens. Nobody stands on the side of a marathon with their arms crossed and is like, yeah, let's see if you can do this, motherfucker. I mean, everybody is like high-fiving the runners and cheering for them every single step of the way. You can still have a mountain of regrets and shame. Like, let's take my husband, for example. Because the other thing that people do is you bring in with you everything that you've done that you regret about your life. And we've all got that too, whether you cheated or you lied or you had an addiction or you hurt somebody or hurt yourself or you squandered opportunity, all shit you just did while you were trying to survive. All stuff that you would forgive Gabby or Mel Robbins for, but you will not forgive yourself for because you don't know how. And so when you start to raise your hand to your reflection, it doesn't wipe away what happened. It says, I get it. I see you and I still love you and I'm still going to support you, which starts to encode you with an identity that you actually deserve to heal. You deserve to move on. You deserve and you feel understood by yourself that you were just doing what you could because that's all you knew to do.
I know you've been asked a lot of questions about this book, but I'm curious, what's a question you wish more people would ask you? Maybe not even about the book, maybe just in general.
I don't know. I actually have no idea.
Well, that's not a bad thing. I don't mean to stump anyone by asking that. I'm just curious.
Well, I'll tell you a question that I think that people find my answer to be really surprising.
Okay.
So you know how a lot of people, and you see it online all the time, that people say, if you could go back and give your millennial self or your younger self advice, what advice would you give?
Okay.
And my answer is, I wouldn't go back and give myself any advice.
Respectable. I actually really respect that response.
Because I believe absolutely everything in your life, good and bad, is preparing you for something that's coming next.
Right.
And what's interesting is that good decisions come with experience. And bad decisions are what create that experience.
That's powerful.
I got to know your superhero origin story. I know you're from the Midwest like me.
Yeah.
But you having a career, you decide I'm going to go to law school and make that a career and then becoming one of the top.
Okay, well, hold on a second. You're giving me too much credit already.
Okay.
Way too much credit already. I did not know what to do with my life when I graduated from college. So I did what a lot of us do. I followed the person I was dating like a little puppy. And I moved to DC, and the first, I couldn't find a job, so I went to a temp agency, and they stuck me in a law firm working as paralegal. And I hated that job. But then the pressure of watching other people figure their lives out by, the people around me as other paralegals started applying to law school. The guy I was dating at the time started applying to graduate school, and I thought, I'm going to get left behind. Yeah. I guess I better apply to law school because I don't know what else to do. And that's how I ended up being a lawyer. And once I got to law school, I hated it. But here's the thing about, I think, what's really difficult in life is that you can find yourself jumping into something because you don't know what else to do. And then it's like falling into the Colorado River and the current just takes you in a direction and it becomes very hard to try to swim to shore and to get out of the current that you're in because everybody else seems to be moving in this direction. It's an act of defiance to go, I actually don't like this, but I'm going to get to shore. The funny thing is, though, is that I went to law school. I kept saying, I'll use this for something else. I'll use this for something else. And I ended up the last year finding mock trial. And my first job out of law school is a job that I would still be doing if I had not met my husband and he got an opportunity in Boston. My first job out of law school, a lot of people don't know this, is I was a criminal defense attorney for legal aid in New York.
That sounds like an intense environment.
I was a public defender. And so if you think about what you do for a living and what I do for a living in terms of sharing wisdom, tools, advice, experiences that help people change their lives for the better. When you're a public defender, you are meeting people in crisis.
Yeah.
And the most interesting aspect about that job is that the person that I was representing didn't pick me. They got stuck with me. And so that job was a master class in building relationships with somebody like that.
That's powerful. And this is one of the things that you teach. And even bringing this up with me is that these things are leading you to something else.
Yes.
But we also, there's so many similarities, and it's freaking me out. I went to school pre-med, not because, and I hated it. And it was because I thought I should do it.
Yeah.
I didn't have any real examples in my environment. I got it from television, watching the Cosby Show. I was like, oh, they look happy. Doctor and a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'll be a doctor. And I detested it, but it led me to where I am today. So.
Oh, okay. Let me stop. Okay, because we're gonna keep spinning on.
And I got out of it. I went a completely different direction. I was like, well, I'll just do business.
No, you
school.
Didn't.
Right, and it brought me back. It brought me back, and it's a thread here.
So I want to kind of unpack this, because this is a really important piece of advice that we're both talking about. Now, the way that I talk about this is I call this a high five attitude. It's grounded in optimism and faith. Sitting right here, you can look back and you can see medical school as a dot on the map of your life leading you to this moment. I can see law school as a dot on the map of my life leading me to this moment. I now advocate for real people to break through the bullshit holding them back, to find the power within, to take control of their lives. You do the same thing with people's health. What I'm here to tell you is so powerful is you can do that same thing of looking back and connecting the dots and stand in this moment. No matter how difficult your life is, no matter how the circumstances are, no matter how much regret you have, you can stand in this moment and you can teach yourself how to look forward from this moment and say, this moment is a dot in the map of my life and it is preparing me for something amazing that's coming. And when you can stand in that moment, you can face absolutely anything that is happening in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's getting ourselves to that place where we do the thing. And where I first was introduced to you was via your TED Talk, which is one of the most epic TED Talks of all time. The vibes are amazing. We'll put it for everybody in the show notes that hasn't seen it. When you jumped off stage in heels as well, by the way. Don't think I didn't notice that. But you mentioned that a lot of times we're just going through the motions and we're living by this dirty F word.
Yes.
Right? So can you talk a little bit about that?
The F word's fine. Fine. I'm fine. And actually, no, you're not. You're unhappy in your life. You're beating yourself up every day when you look in the mirror. You're living with regrets. You're talking yourself out of what you want. Fine is the F word, because when you settle, when you say that you're fine, whether it's in the area of health or sleep or whatever, or whether it's about you holding yourself back, you continuing to date losers, you telling yourself you're not good enough, settling for fine is basically a death sentence, in my opinion. I want to tell you a funny story about that TED Talk, though.
Right.
Because I think one of the big things that holds people back from going after what they want is they sit and they watch your show and they're like, oh man, I'm never going to be that successful. Oh, that's so fancy. Oh, look at how many followers he has. Or they look at my TED Talk and they're like, 27 million views? Holy smokes. Let me tell you the backstory in that. Because things are not how they appear. So in 2011, I had liens on my house to the tune of $800,000. I was 3 years into using something that I created called the 5-second rule, something I invented during the worst moment of my life when my husband's restaurants were failing. I was unemployed, 41 years old with 3 kids under the age of 10. And my anxiety about our financial crisis was so bad, it would pin me to the bed. I could not get out of bed. I invent the 5-second rule, drunk one night on bourbon, as an idea to launch myself out of bed like a rocket ship so that I would not be in the bed when the anxiety, the overwhelm, the fear pinned me there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's basically the 5-second rule. You got an idea, you got to move. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The thing works.
It is instant motivation, instant courage. It has tremendous amount of science moving you from the subconscious part of the brain and activating the prefrontal cortex to give you immediate control over what you think and do next. I used this sucker in secret for 3 years and turned my life around. But we're still $800,000 in debt. We are still struggling to make the ends meet. I am nowhere by any means out of the gate in terms of the problems in my life. I'm still not out of the gate, by the way. That tends to be how I learn. I f*** up my life and then I have to figure out how to fix it. That's Mel Robbins' way of motivation.
And helping others along the way.
Yes, correct. And so it's 2011 and TEDx is not a thing, okay? Yeah. Let's be honest. TEDx started then.
Yeah.
And my college roommate's friend was putting on the first TEDx. And they were looking for somebody who had changed their jobs a million times to talk about career change. So my college roommate's like, oh, you got to call Mel. She's like crazy. She's like a butterfly that darts from public defender to corporate litigation to the digital ad business to this, to that, to the other thing. And so they call me and they are offering 2 plane tickets to San Francisco and to put us up at the St. Regis. And I look at my husband, I'm like, free vacation, babe, let's go. Now, I had never given a speech in my entire life. I get that I was a public defender, but it's very different to stand in a courtroom and talk to a judge and a court officer and 12, citizens in a jury than to stand in an auditorium on a stage and talk to 800 people. And back then, they didn't really prepare people. They kind of did a little rehearsal. You got 20 minutes. So what you're seeing in that 20-minute long that 21-minute long TEDx talk is Mel Robbins having an anxiety attack for 21 minutes. If you look closely, there is a neck rash all over my chest that comes on at minute 1. I jumped off that stage like completely disassociated, not knowing what the hell I was going to do. I then get back on that stage. I'm like, my heart's like this, which is why I'm darting all over the place. I am so disassociated that at minute 19, I go, and I forget how to end the speech. The speech was not about the 5-second rule. I didn't even know why the 5-second rule worked. So I was not going to get on a stage and tell a bunch of strangers, if you count backwards from 5, it'll change your life. That sounds ridiculous. And so I literally forget how to end the speech. And I go, oh, by the way, there's this thing I do. I call it the 5-second rule. The moment you have an instinct to do something, you got to move within 5 seconds. Thank you very much. I think I even gave out my email address on that stage. And then I leave. A year goes by. They put it online. I don't even know.
Unbelievable.
Another year goes by. And now it's racked up 1 million views. And somebody starts messaging me on Facebook going, would you come talk to this thing? And I'm like, oh, were you in San Francisco? They're like, no, I saw it online. I'm like, online? And that's how it all began. Is that not crazy?
This is blowing my freaking mind. So this was something totally new for you. I was just like, oh, she's a seasoned veteran.
Hell no. I literally did not say, I did not wake up one day and be like, I am going to become the most booked motivational speaker for women in the world. I am going to set out and write books. And I got into personal development kicking and screaming. I think God, the universe, somebody else had a much bigger plan and said, it is time for the world to know about the 5-second rule. And this crazy lady over here is going to be the messenger for this thing. Because I do not believe it is mine. I believe it is a gift to the world. Because when you count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you interrupt subconscious programming in your mind that is holding you back, and you open up your prefrontal cortex, giving you immediate control over what you think and do next. Do you know there are more than 111 people who have stopped themselves from committing suicide because of the 5-second rule? Veterans organizations are using it to reprogram triggers associated with PTSD. Pediatricians use it to help kids interrupt the thoughts and the nervous system responses that cause you to spiral in anxiety. And I'm so proud of it because it's free, it's sticky, it's easy to remember, and it works every time you use it. And I'm so passionate about it because this high 5 habit thing is the exact same kind of thing. It sounds so stupid. It is so simple, and it works the first time you use it, and the science is like bananas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Listen, to see, I literally just watched it again yesterday, and I remember that part where you're just like, oh, by the way.
Yes.
Now to hear this, it's just like, thank you so much for sharing this.
Of course.
people seeing it, we tend to, especially today, we tend to see the things in a superficial way. We don't know what goes into it. And to know that you basically powered yourself through that moment and all the doors that it eventually opened, that's just phenomenal.
I've got a couple more questions for you, Mel, if you don't mind. I'm really, really enjoying this conversation. But having said all this, having spoken about self-love a lot, this is a question I've wanted to ask you since I started reading and started hearing more about your message. But what do you love the most about yourself now and your story?
I feel really surprised that I'm going to say this. I think the thing that I love the most about myself now is that I actually do believe that I'm a really good person.
Love that.
I just think that I have a really good heart and I mean well and I want to make a difference. And having spent an entire lifetime believing that there's something wrong with me, it is so liberating to finally have my brain align with my heart in terms of my belief about myself, my intentions, my actions, all of it. And what was the second question?
What do you love the most about your story?
It's the thing that I think that there's this divine guidance nature to my story that what's happened in my life, particularly in the last 13 years, is so implausible that there is no other explanation than divine intervention. And I believe, like you believe, that every single human being is born with a purpose that's unique and all their own. And at the same time, and I know you believe the same thing, I think everybody's purpose is exactly the same. And it's to find the courage to tell your story, because it's in the sharing of yourself that you will impact somebody else. And nobody else has your story, your experiences, your wisdom, none of it. And nobody else ever will. And so I do think everybody's purpose is to come back home to who they are and share that story of the journey of returning home. And, I was going to say that my answer was going to be that I have to, my version of helping people always requires me to fall into a hole or dig one. And then once I hit the bottom of that hole, I got to somehow build a ladder to get out of it. And that's what the 5-second rule was 13 years ago. It was a ladder that I created to help me get out of bed when the anxiety and fear was so crushing. It would pin me there every morning. And the high five habit was a ladder to help me climb out of the hole of overwhelm and defeat and self-criticism that kept me really down. But the truth is, I don't like learning like that because it's painful. Like I literally am like, can I just read something in a book like other people do? Like, why does it involve me driving headfirst into a brick wall before I have an epiphany? Do I have to be this stubborn and screwed up in order to discover these things? When will it get easy? But I do think that is sort of the nature of things.
my daughter said to me, because I was really, when the what hit the fan with the quarantine and my business turned upside down and I lost my dream job and the speaking business upended and I felt like we were going to be back in a financial free fall and my kids are having cascading anxiety attacks. Oh, not to mention all the stuff that came with the global pandemic. We all had a complete spiritual, mental, physical, like just realignment, reorganization, upset, fear, all of it. And obviously it was a blessing in so many ways. Yeah. And I remember going, why is this happening to me? Why? I've worked so hard. Seriously, this is how my story ends. 13 years ago, I'm $800,000 in debt and drinking myself into the ground and on the edge of losing everything. And I claw my way out of that hole. I share the 5-second rule. Millions of lives are changed. I build a business. I land my dream job, hosting a television show, helping people. Now it's all taken away. Now I'm in financial crisis again. Now I'm reinventing myself again. Are you kidding me, God? Why are you like this? Why is it? And then why? And then on top of that, why am I now the victim of wire fraud? Why is this person betraying me? Why are the implants that I got causing cancer? Why? And finally, my daughter said, why are my kids college? Like just that I was in that state. And my daughter said, I think I know the answer. And I said, why? And she said, your gift in life is to help people. And I think you've forgotten what it feels like to be lost and afraid. And she was right. It's not that my life was easy. It wasn't easy because I was beating the hell out of myself every step of the way. But I had, in many cases, because I had become so busy and so successful, I had forgotten what it's like to wake up with crushing anxiety every morning. I had forgotten what it's like to look in the mirror and absolutely feel like you can't get through the day. And the gift of this breakdown was the high five habit, which cracked absolutely everything open and let a bunch of light into a place that was really dark in my mind.
What I've learned is that when we go through all these experiences, and I've been through quite a few, very much like you, and I'm only 25. So I'm still quite literally a baby.
Yeah, you are. When I was 25, I was like cheating on boyfriends and drinking myself into the ground. And I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. He's like, oh, whoa, okay. I didn't know I had been the victim of sexual abuse when I was in the 4th grade yet. I hadn't gone to therapy. I had generalized anxiety, train wreck, or human being, interchangeable.
But you know what? It helps me and helps you to relate to other people. And I think people are searching for, like we've been talking about, connection to self-love, and you help bridge that divide. So I'm grateful for your work and everything that you are doing. You have this incredible book. People can go and get a copy of it.
Can I ask you a question though?
Of course.
How the hell did you get so awake and transformed at the age of 25?
That is a difficult question to answer in a short period of time. But essentially my life wasn't going where I wanted it to go. My life literally came crashing down and I fell apart in 2019, went through a difficult breakup, lost my dog of 11 years who we were like this. I was going through a lot of grief, a lot of torment, found out a little bit later on that I was sexually abused when I was 6 years old. So there was all that. I was dealing with depression, anxiety, and in the middle around, I think it was June or July, I attempted to end my story, attempted to end my life because I didn't feel like I was enough anymore. I was also in a pretty high stress environment with my career, which is real estate. Had no idea what I was doing, by the way. And then towards the end of August, I'd made the choice to leave the career in real estate and step out in a lot of debt. I had no idea what I was going to do and was just very lost. And I was actually in a job interview for a top recruitment company here in Sydney, Australia. And the CEO asked me this one question. He goes, "Why do you want to work here?" And I said, "I want to help people." I'd been helping people get a home, and I thought maybe I can help people get a job. But little did I realize the extent of what I actually meant in that answer. What I was really saying was, I want to help people realize their own worth, realize their full potential through the power of stories. Because I realized, hey, I'm young. I've been through absolute hell and back, and I still didn't know what it was going to fully look like then. I just knew I wanted to help. So how many people are struggling like I am? You know, how many people are dealing with all these crippling anxieties and they don't know that they're enough? How many people have committed suicide or attempted suicide that I can potentially help with my story and all the things that I've been through? And so really that's where the story box became the story box. And I started this growth journey of, I worked with disabled people for a period of time that taught me a lot about gratitude and who I am as a person. And I should be really thankful for the way I am and what I've been through. And then it's just grown enormously. So that in a short nutshell is how I've managed to get to this realization. And because I get to speak with incredible people like you, Mel, that teach me through your story. And I realized that we're not so different. And that just helped.
No, but you're clearly a little bit more aware than I am, because I kept digging the hole I was in for another 2 decades before I hit the bottom of it. So high five to you, man. You say you're a faster study than I am, apparently. Either that or I'm more stubborn.
No, I think that I've just been blessed, honestly, to have that realization early on. And I desire first and foremost that a lot of young people, especially, like if you are a young person right now, you don't have to go through all the things that I went through or even Mel went through. Like you can change your life right now. And why put yourself through absolute hell when you don't even need to? If I had a choice to go back and choose a much simpler path, I probably would have chosen the simpler path. Why extend even more pain to yourself when you don't need to? I know some of the pain is unexpected and unavoidable, and how you show up in that pain is often a big difference maker. I really believe that. But for pain that we put ourselves through, why put yourself through it? You know?
Well, it's true. It's true. I hope that our conversation is an awakening for somebody, that maybe the pain that you're in the middle of, you're not alone in it. I mean, you said something that I think about a lot, which is there's like 8 billion people on the planet. What are the odds that you're not the only one that's feeling the way that you feel? And I guarantee you're not, because I also think if you go to YouTube, somebody made a video about it. And when you start to realize that, yeah, it feels deeply personal and you feel isolated, but you're not alone in what you're feeling, and other people have been there and gotten through it, you'll realize that you can too. It's interesting. The only thing that we kind of, that I disagree with is that I wouldn't go back and change anything. I often get asked, what would you tell your younger self? And I say, absolutely nothing. And the reason why I say that is because I do believe that all the dots on the map of your life connect. And it's easy to sit in this moment and look backwards and see exactly how all the dots in your life, good and bad, painful or glorious, connect to this very moment. That in some way there was an experience that shaped you, or a trauma that shaped you, or a person or wisdom or something that has prepared you for this moment. And I also gain a lot of faith, and the high five habit has taught me this, by standing in front of the mirror every morning and pushing through the resistance and the self-judgment and high-fiving the woman who's doing her best and sending myself into the game of life to play another day. I also am affirming this very deep belief that this moment is also a dot on the map of my life. This day is a dot on the map of my life. This thing I'm feeling is a dot on the map of my life. And it too is preparing me for something that is coming in the future. And when I know and look at my life that way, a series of experiences, some shitty, some amazing, some heartbreaking, some heart exploding and expanding. It's like being a surfer and learning to ride the waves, knowing that eventually it'll carry you to shore. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.